angels, welcome back to another episode of In My Bedroom. I am so glad to have you guys here with us today to learn, grow, be encouraged, and be inspired. Today's guest is a producer and mixing engineer, a man who has shaped countless of musicians' lives by being a lecturer. Please welcome Frank Leonard Walker.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today, Frank. So before we get into anything, can you in your own words explain what mixing is in music?
Yeah, it's quite simple really isn't the concept, right? It's just taking some raw material, raw audio, and putting it all together so you get a finished kind of product, right? A cohesive song at the end. Yeah, and really that's what it comes down to. There's lots of like videos online and things like that of how to go into the technicalities of it, and it can get quite deep.
Yeah, trust me.
But
I've been down that
it's
rabbit
quite
hole.
useful to like push that aside and always go back to like, oh, I'm just making a song.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like putting all the pieces together
Exactly.
to make it sound.
Yeah.
I find that that's always a very refreshing thing because I'm that person that has like probably like 100 videos that I'm looking through. I'm like, how do I do this? How do I make this tiny little like tweak or whatever? And then I'm just like, Chantelle, it's just make it sound good. Just like make everything blend well. That's the basics.
Yeah. So the description is super easy. Doing it and remembering that the whole time is harder.
Yeah, it's harder. So like, how long have you been mixing? Like, how did your journey start?
So I think with most mixers probably we all start as some kind of musician.
Yeah.
So at a young age I started piano. We had a piano in the house. Well, I used to just like smash it like that. Not making nice sound, but eventually I started to learn how to make nicer, and then learned guitar a bit, and then got into bands.
Yeah, okay.
And so it's probably around like mid-teens, like 14, 15, where I started to play in bands and then want to record it. So like at school we'd have a little recording studio, and my friend had a shed and some mics, so it was real lo-fi kind of stuff, but really probably started about then. And that's around the time that I thought, oh, I'm kind of more interested in, because I used to play live as well, but it's kind of like, I just didn't enjoy that as much. I preferred the like creative process and like, getting it to sound, like we talked about, how you want it to sound. It's just getting those levels. And then I went to study at TU. I was that age where it's like, what do I want to do? It's like, I like doing this thing, and there's a course on it. So, I went to uni, studied it, and I was still in bands, and so I was not necessarily wanting to be a mix engineer, but I'd always be mixing for things I was in, or there would be bands that we knew who needed something done, and I was just always there to be like, put my hand up, like, I'll give it a go. And then you just carry on basically. And ideally you're sort of getting better, you learn a bit more about the process and like what people want when you're working for clients. And like I said, it's always trying to get back to, because you definitely go through like a dip. Where like, kind of like my first mix, so the mixes I did when I was like 15, 16, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, right? I was just, well, that needs to be about that loud. What's this reverb? Throw that on. But it kind of sounded like, listen, it kind of works. Like, it's not, super polished, but the energy of the songs there, the emotion of the songs there. And then probably the mixes I did when I was like a little bit older, say in my 20s, I was trying way too hard.
Because there's just so much more information and
exactly.
Across,
and it's like, oh, why you think about why isn't my stuff sounding like this, and then you see someone says, oh, because you need to do this, and then you try that thing. And there's definitely some mixes I'm not proud of, where if I listen back now, I'd be like, try and get your mind back
Yeah.
into that mindset. And I like to think that's kind of where I am now.
Yeah.
But that's we're always growing it anyway. So 5 years later, I'm going to look back to now and be like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. What was I talking about on that podcast?
But the thing is, I was telling Jess earlier on that I have such a love-hate relationship with mixing.
Yeah.
Yet you know that. There's this one song I've said to Frank so many times just to try and learn it, because the thing about me is I'm a problem solver. So if there's a problem, I believe that there's a solution and it can be fixed. But the thing that I've learned about mixing is it's more of a creative process than just a technical process.
Yeah.
So I think the thing that makes people grow and better over time is having a creative mind and being open about things, because you hear things in one way when you're when I was 16, the things that I was hearing in music are different from the things that I was hearing when I was 18, even different from the things I was hearing a few months ago, just because I'm being more creative, so I'm being more open to okay, that's an interesting sound, how is it created? So I hear extra harmonies or extra things that are hidden in the mix that weren't there before. I'm oh, that's pretty interesting. I could try that. I could play around with that. But for the most part, it's always just been how do I fix this? Somebody says this, somebody says that. I'm going to get more information. And the more information is kind of, in a way, made me worse, because one, everybody has their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
As a mixing engineer, there's so many different ways to solve one problem. So when you're taking in so much information, it's okay, well, I at first didn't know where to go. Now I have 10 different paths to go down, and I don't know which one's right, so I'm going to try all of them. And then it's I end up with a different problem. I don't know how to think.
Gone too far the other way. Yeah, it's a good point you make about what you were listening to. So again, when you start learning about this stuff, when you got into music, when you loved listening to music, and as a kid, and you find something you didn't care about any of that stuff, right? There was something there that you liked, and then when you start then listening in a certain way, it's kind of counteractive to what you're supposed to do. You think, oh, I want it to sound like that. I mean, we've all been.
It's you know too much. My brother and I were saying, because my brother does acting, and we were both our lives are ruined now when it comes to acting and music. Because I hear too much. I know too much, so I hear too much. And when it comes to movies, I'm I can't enjoy a movie anymore because I know the plot line, because I've seen it 1,000 times. So I can tell you now what's going to happen at the end of this movie, so it's ruined for me. But I think it's that thing of, we said this, Ben said this the other time, it's that we have access to so much information, and it's kind of filtering and monitoring how much you're taking in.
Yeah.
So you don't overload yourself with information, and you almost you can keep things simple. In a way.
I think as I've gotten older as well, I'm working in music. There's a similar thing to what you were saying with watching movies, knowing what's happening. It's actually quite hard to stay current with music that's current out. So I actively listen to new music. Whereas I think it's quite easy to fall into a habit of I just like listening to that old stuff. You might analyse it in the wrong way, and not feel it like you did when you were 16, but it's still good to keep on top of trends and things like that.
What's going on? No, I agree. What do you think separates a good mixing engineer from a great one?
Probably sort of personal skills.
Okay.
Mostly. So I think there's lots of people that can do a good mix. So you can make it sound, get the levels kind of right, make it sound, the EQ balance is good, it kind of sounds professional. But in terms of working with people and understanding what is needed from the mix and being able to just be nice about it. I've seen other engineers and the way they react with clients or to client feedback and things like that. And you've got to remember, it's such a collaborative process of getting a song to its final sound. It's just being totally open, right? So being as open as you can to change, and just taking that, like every piece of information or feedback in like goodwill and going for it. In terms of like technical, it's probably just movement. So, again, you've got to think as a listener. So a listener isn't seeing what we see on the screen, isn't focused in on looping a section. They're listening to the song, and you're wanting to take them on a journey. So you've got to think about how are you leading them on that journey. Right? What are you going to pull to the forefront at certain points because you want the listener to engage with that moment, whatever it might be. So yeah, generally, the better mixes and the mixes I tend to be happy with that I've done is where I've been able to sort of impart, convey a sense of like storytelling throughout. And so it's got movement. And again, it goes back to production as well. So you're going to have a harder time if your production's flat. Then it's really hard to do that in the mixing stage. But yeah, where it builds and there's moments and you like to listen to this. We've all got favourite songs where you're like, I love that moment, right? When that comes. But you'd never listen to that moment just on its own. You need to have that build, whatever it is.
That's so interesting that you say that, because something that I've started doing recently is after, like, when I'm working on a song or I'm working on a mix, when I want to listen to it, I close my eyes. I close my eyes so I can listen to, so I can actually hear. Because I think very often we forget, especially like as producers and mixing engineers, that you listen to music, you don't watch it. So when you're looking at a screen and you're looking at all the different stems and all the different tracks, it's like it's so much for your brain to process, and you're looking at it from such like a technical and an analytical way.
There's a sense of anticipation. You see the next thing that's going to come in, so you wait for it, and then it's there, and you're like ready to listen for it. Whereas, like you say,
close your eyes, and it's like it's such a different experience. Even some of my favorite songs, like sometimes when I'm listening to them and I'm like, oh, I really like this song, and like, what about it do I like? Like I sit down and close my eyes and I listen to it, and I hear all the different bits that make up that story, and like and take you on that journey. So that's just really interesting. From your perspective as lecturer, I mean, I think I know the answer to this question now, but from your perspective as lecturer, do you think you can teach someone to be a great mixing engineer? Because I personally feel like there's an element of creativity and intuition and passion that you can't teach when it comes to mixing, because I feel like everybody has their own personal touch to a mix.
I think yes, generally there's going to be people who are predisposed to who do have a sort of slightly innate thing. Not necessarily, it might be their upbringing or whatever that has built that into them. But generally, I do think with the right sort of teaching, and again, they're going to find their own way, right? So you might have your own sound. As a mixer, you might have your own tendencies and the way you like things to sound or the way you approach it. But I think the concept of essentially remembering it's a song that people just listen to and not getting too bogged down. It might take quite a while, but you can start drilling it into them, and I think you can get anyone there really. They just need to be open to that.
To the process. I mean, I agree with that. I think my experience with mixing, the biggest thing that I've learned is it's a process. And also, I think, one, because it involves so much like tech, the computers to the software, like just the plugins, like everything, it involves so much tech. We get very analytical. Then sometimes I'm like, the people that are hearing this are not going to hear half of it. Like the general public that's going to end up listening to this song, they're not going to hear half of what I'm doing. It's only the people with the really analytical ears, or the people within the industry that really know how to do this and what's going on, that will pay attention to that stuff. But I'm like, the biggest point, or like the whole point of it, is to create something that people enjoy. And I think it also takes away a lot of the pressure to like get it right, especially from a very analytical point of view.
And I think the technical aspects are in a way easier to teach.
Yeah.
Even though you might need that sort of sciencey mind, like your mind works that way, it is fairly yes or no, right? But because music itself is just so creative, it's a harder thing to teach, and that's why you're actually really what you want to teach is being able to connect to an emotion, a feeling, whatever it is, and being able to translate that to a mixing board and transferring it. But that's obviously a lot harder to teach.
Yeah, it's almost like there's right and wrong, but at the same time, there's no right and wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's so many examples that I'm not going to be able to think of a single one right now, but where a mix has gone, against the grain.
Yeah.
But then that mix completely works and everyone loves that song because although it's against the grain of a standard mix, it's captured that thing.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. But we're talking in terms of like X Factor stuff now, where you can't say like, oh, that's the reason that it's it's
something that it just works. Like there's no real explanation for it. Don't try to find one. It just works, and let's just leave it at that. No, I agree with that. I think that's why I'm like I have such a love-hate relationship with mixing, and it's very hot and cold. I'm like, which one is it? Is it the detailed stuff, or is it just like just be free with it, and whatever happens, happens? I think there are some things where it's like, okay, this is a better way to get something to sound.
Mm.
But at the same time, it's kind of like there are rules, but you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it ends up being a bit of a blend. Like you do need to know the technical stuff to some extent to get, like you say, just even if you just need that thing to sound brighter.
Yeah, to know how to do that. Yeah,
and not push it too far and that kind of thing. But yeah, ultimately, when it comes down to the song as a whole, you've got to like you were saying about closing your eyes. I've got my cursor on my screen. If I put it in the top right, it goes to screensaver mode. So I can just quickly like turn off the door. I'm not seeing that. I've got my control surface in front of me, so switch up there, and then start like listening and pushing faders and doing that. And then you're not. It just helps a little bit just to turn.
Yeah, it's like turn off your eyes and like open up your ears to what you're hearing and what's gonna make it sound beautiful. That's really interesting.
It's like you know about like the car test and stuff like that, right? So you've done a mix and you take it to the car. I think a lot of people think that is to listen to it, which it partly is, in a different environment in terms of, it sounds different in here, so is it too bassy in the car?
Yeah.
But really what it is that you go drive in the car, you put it on, and you're not focused on the mix. You're listening to it like you would other songs on the radio. Right? And then something might jump out at you. So it's more about taking yourself out of the studio and listening. Yeah,
and out of that headspace as well,
rather than being like, I'm going to listen on a different set of speakers that are in my car.
No, it's interesting because I think it's that thing of like switching out of a specific headspace, because I have to do it a lot. I'm like, okay, I'm in my singer-songwriter headspace, so I'm like, I'm not going to think about the production, I'm not going to think about anything.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pay attention to songwriting. And then when it comes to the production aspect, I'm like, I'm going to forget every single lyric I wrote. I'm just going to pay attention to the music. And then vice versa with like mixing and mastering. And it's like jumping in and out of these different headspaces. Sometimes actually leaving the environment that you're in can really help to do that.
Yeah, if you ever feel like you're stuck, just go to the next stage or go to a different place. But it's especially hard for you and anyone who does mix their own stuff. Like there's another step of kind of getting inside your own head potentially. So you need to like engage with those things more.
At a point in time, so Jess and I have a group chat, and sometimes I'm just like, I've spent way too many hours listening to this. I'm hearing things that I don't even think are there. You just tell me what's actually going on with this song.
Because after a certain amount of time as well, so I like to be fairly quick with mixing because Once I work on something for too long, I just know I'm overthinking things.
Yeah, you just become
things that
get numb to it. Yeah.
hours ago I was fine with. Like,
Yeah.
why am I not fine
Fine
with
with
it
this
now?
now. Yeah. So how long do you usually take to do mixes?
So I normally do a couple of stages. So there's normally a prep stage, right? So I'd get multi-track sent to me, and I'm just putting them into my like template, right? So onto the right tracks that have got reverbs and things set up, not on yet, but just ready to go. So that might just take like half an hour or so, a bit less. So I normally do that. Then I'd do an initial like, right, this is my first mix, I'm going to go through it. And that might be a couple of hours, and I'll just kind of get the general tone, get levels roughly where I want them. And then I'll probably take a break. And then it might be another day, or it might be later in the day. Depending how big the session is, like if it's a big session, it might be another couple of hours, like tweaking things and stuff. Or it might go straight on to where, like I said, I put the screensaver on, and then I start automating it, so I start listening to things. So really, I like to get it done in like a day, basically, but like split up a bit, so I'm not just fully working at it. And if I've got other tracks I'm working with which has some revisions, I break it up with that sort of thing, back and forth. But it depends on the quality of the stuff you get as well. So some of it might require lots of like, kind of like the prep work stuff where I might be just doing like declipping stuff, like especially like a ballad song where there's like the vocal is the main thing, vocal and piano, something like that, where it's really exposed. There's normally like a lot of sounds in the recording, like mouse sounds and like weird breaths or whatever, or like just a single word, the tone might have been different on it. So I'd go through, and that might take a little bit longer because you are just going.
Very, very detailed.
And that's the thing that I think you learn at some stage is the importance of detail. So it's quite easy early on to be like, well, there's the vocal, like I'm EQing that as a whole, I'm compressing it as a whole. The reverb's the same, as a whole throughout the whole thing. But then at some point you realise, there's something weird that happens at that point. Oh, there's something weird that happens at that point. And then you realise, right, I've got to actually go through this whole thing now and fix any little points. So again, depends on the recording. You can get that completely perfect in the recording. So it's just knowing when to go in and when to go out. But ideally within a day. But that might be spread over 2 days. I tend to like to do my mix prep in the evening. Because I work really well in the morning. If I wake up early, a few hours, and I can get like quite far through a mix. Whereas mix prep is boring. And like I'm a bit like I've shut down. But I can like drag a track into the right place.
It is very boring. I break mine up into days, so I have obviously I record and then I tune the vocals, and then I have my mixing day 1, mixing day 2, and then I have my master day. So I break it up because I have a very bad habit of I could easily sit at my computer at 7 p.m. and still be there at midnight. So I'm like, no, 4 hours, we're going to do this. Whatever happens in 4 hours stays in 4 hours. Unless I'm really into something and I'm really trying to tweak something, then maybe I might go for it a little bit. But for the most part, I try to keep it to that amount of time just so I don't get lost in the song. Because the moment I do that, I'm not hearing the right things, and I'm hearing things that aren't even there, and it's just it just becomes a mess. So I'm like, let's just keep it to the days, and let's just keep the time frame short.
But 2 days is good. Right? When I was mixing albums, when I was at the project, and it was months. I'd always go back to it. I was never finished. So I think keeping it tight time frame. Again, just you're staying with that initial interpretation of what the song would be. And then but obviously if I'm working with other people, the feedback could go on for weeks afterwards. which is fine. Again, it's just going
Yeah.
through that process.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So teaching.
Yeah.
How? What got you into that? How did you get into that?
By mistake, I guess.
Like Jess, you just fell into it.
So, yeah, I got the technician job at the university, and then it's just like a process of someone not being available to teach a certain thing. So I was like, yeah, I'll jump on it. And yeah, I mean that's essentially it. I think, and then I got put in the Pro Tools trainer course. So I was teaching all the Pro Tools courses, which probably gave me a bit of confidence with actually teaching. And yeah, I mean I like it. I generally like this stuff, and I like sitting in the studio with other people and talking about
Yeah.
studio stuff
Yeah.
and how to record and how to mix and yeah. So it wasn't ever like a plan of mine to go into teaching. Well, I never really had a plan. It was vaguely like something studio music related.
Would be good.
Yeah, and I was sort of roughly falling around that area. But yeah, I quite like teaching. But yeah, whether I do more, I don't know. We'll see.
Interesting. So, what's been the best part about it?
About teaching,
Yeah.
it is it is seeing the students grow. Basically, you know, it's good. It's good when you can see, you know, say you marked a mix they've done in the first year or whatever, and then they do one in the second year or a final project, and you see that kind of growth, and you like to think like, oh, maybe I helped a little bit.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I mean you did. That's why, like I said, like you shaped a lot of different like musicians' lives. Because when I sit down and think about me and my mixing mess that I was in first year, of just like I want to get this right. I want to learn. Like you're part of that journey for me in terms of like, because like there's certain things that I want to say, I don't want to say graduated from, but I was like, I used to do them before in mixing, but then I don't anymore. And then it's like, I come back to it, like, oh yeah, Frank told me to do that, or you told me to try that. So it is really, I mean, it makes no sense, because like, it's just, yeah, it's true, because it's been your part of the journey. So it's nice to know that you feel that too, because we definitely do on our side.
I almost don't know what another thing would be that's good about teaching.
Yeah.
Like, you know, marking's not that fun.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so it's interesting teaching mixing as well, because often people are at different levels, not necessarily like better or worse, but they understand certain things more than someone else, and you've got to kind of work out what is it that they actually need to improve. And it gets really tricky when they start showing us like good mixes, and it's like because it's easier if someone comes with me with
bad
really
mix,
okay, well the balance is all over, you know, we can just get that in. But when it's sounding good, but you can tell it's still not quite there, and it comes back to what we were talking about at the top, is where they might have lost that way.
Yeah.
So they know the technical details, but aren't using them in the right way.
Yeah. I think for me, it's about stylistic choices, because when you get to a point where, okay, you have like the technical basis of like, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is how to do it. When you're like, okay, I want to achieve this specific sound, or I want it to move in this specific way. When you start like, it's always kind of like when you start playing with those toys, you start tweaking, like playing around with those things get complicated and they get messy. And it's like, okay, well, I'm doing the right things, but it's not achieving the right goal. And it's like, it's good, but it's not there. And how to get it to there is usually like a personal thing
Yeah.
And it's really hard to teach that. So
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of distractions essentially, and yeah, that's a lot of it's through practice as well. So a student could come to me, like you did perhaps with a mix that you weren't happy with or wanted to work on, and I can tell you something, but it's not instantly gonna like do everything for you, right? It's something to take away. Do it for this one, and I think as well when you're coming up, especially artists who work on their own stuff, is being okay with it not being exactly how you want it straight away. You're gonna have to make hundreds of songs to get there. But it's fine as long as you sort of see a bit of progression, like I am developing. So it's understanding that it's not that, because I was like that as a student. And I always put it off as into something else. Like I always thought like my mixes are quite good, but they still don't quite sound right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's probably because they haven't been mastered, right?
Yeah.
And then you find out mastering
doesn't
really do anything, right? A finished mix should sound finished.
Yeah.
If the master not. So yeah, there's a lot of like distractions and kind of things like, oh, it's just because, again, you see this a lot on YouTube with tutorials where it's like, oh, the thing you're missing is
this
or this, and you're seeing that, it's almost like those things
like that so much.
Things are flying around, you're like, it might be that, it might be that. Whereas the focus is like,
I hate things like that so much, because it takes a lot of growth as a musician as to just, I don't want to say ignore those things, but realize that they're probably not the fix.
Yeah, I think they're good to like play around with. Like I've definitely taken stuff from YouTube before and tried it, and like might still use it to this day, but it's like you say, it's never a fix.
Yeah,
it's just a tool that might be useful.
Exactly. I mean, I think the way I've seen it is playing around with those things might help you find the fix, but the fix is in the process.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it will take a while before you get to that point of like, oh, this is the sound that I'm looking for. I mean, there's so many different artists that I listen to that it's taken them years, and these are like artists that work with like crazy budgets. They're working with like some of the best in the industry, and it's not that what they're making isn't good, but that for them, it's not that sound that they're looking for. Yep. And it takes a lot of time. It takes skill, it takes technique, it takes process, and sometimes it's just a happy accident at the end of the day. And you're like, oh wow, I found what I was looking for and I didn't realize it.
I mean, sometimes this is harder to do, but sometimes it's a good idea to almost forget that you're searching for something and just be okay with experimenting and trying things and being okay with, it's like when you're songwriting, right? Be okay with writing a rubbish song.
Yeah, and Sharon said something about that, like being okay with like writing a rubbish song or a terrible song, like, and that will help.
So practically, you've got to get those out of your system.
Before you get to the good ones. No, I 1000% agree. These days, a lot of musicians, like as we said, are doing, a lot of upcoming artists are doing everything themselves. They're their own songwriters, producers, mixing engineers, like mastering engineers. What is like your number one tip or advice that you would give them?
Trying to think of something new, because I would always go back to just like that understanding what your song is, or who you are as an artist. That's what you want to convey. Because again, I think people do get bogged down in the technical aspect of it all. I don't know if this is great advice. It's kind of like it's so vague of like kind of just staying true to yourself.
It's so vague, and I used to hate it, but I mean I still hate advice like that, because like
it's not actionable, right?
Yeah, exactly. You want actionable
someone
advice,
to go, what you need to do is turn this up by 2.5 dB.
Exactly.
And then you're done.
You want the specificities, but the honest truth is, I'm like, that a lot of, I think the moment you get it, it's almost like a weight off of your shoulders. It's down to you and what you want and what you like. There's a technical skill that's needed, but there's no amount of someone teaching you how to do this that is gonna get you to exactly where you want to be. You just have to be open to the fact that it's probably gonna sound like shit. I'm probably gonna make mistakes, but like it's part of the process.
I think another great thing, although you specify people working alone, but is to collaborate.
Yeah.
So, or even if not collaborate, but
bounce things off.
See someone else working, like be in an environment where other people are creating things.
Yeah.
Not to like steal ideas or anything, but you just get. It's nice to see how other people work, and it's almost nice to see other people like struggle.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh yeah. As I said, I'm a big fan of that. I'm like, what's it called? There's what's called it? You know how they say there's strength in numbers, there's comfort in struggle. When you're struggling, when you're collectively struggling, you feel at peace. You're like, okay, thank God, like it's not just me.
Yeah, everyone's struggling. It's fine.
Just in a room with people mixing, and you can see everybody like try and break their screen at some point.
but yeah, I think my biggest steps in growth have always been like when I've say joined a new band or recorded someone new, and I'm then see someone else working in a different way, and it's like, oh, they're a really good guitarist or whatever, and you sort of, although it might not improve your guitar playing, it sort of informs you what is good about certain types of guitar playing. And that's for everything, like vocalists and things like that. So I think just being around creatives is really useful to just help grow and like solidify your identity and what, because at some point I think I wanted to, like when I started learning guitar, it's like I want to be a guitarist. And then I'm not a guitarist. Like you see other people and you're like, oh okay, and so I get a sense of like, right, that's not me. I kind of thought maybe it was,
but
it's not.
But you can still take something from
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. How do you measure success as a mixing engineer? Because I've always struggled. It's almost like I've always needed validation from other people to measure my success when it comes to mixing or in music in general. Because it's always kind of like I needed that one thumbs up from people to be like, you're doing a good job, for me to feel like I'm doing a good job. So how do you measure success?
I mean, it is nice. I do like getting good feedback, like especially weirdly not from like, it's nice from clients I'm working with, like really happy with the mix, but from like other engineers or just like people who almost aren't interested in it, being like, oh, that sounded really good. That's kind of like, oh okay, it's getting across. But success, I don't know, I guess it's more internal for me, maybe in terms of as long as I'm happy with it. Like if I listen back to it, because there's actually quite a lot where I listen back a couple of months later and I'm like, like that's not quite how I remember it sounding. Or like things jump out to me, then it's like, oh, okay, I'll do that. Different. But when I hear one back and it's, oh, I still like this. Right? It's like, oh, I succeeded. That was a success. That particular mix. And then I guess the growth of that is just more consistent.
Oh, I've just never. I would just tell anyone out there, if you're waiting for somebody else to validate you when it comes to anything creative, really, whether it's art, whether it's music, you're gonna live a miserable life. Because I've always done creative things. I mean, I did art GCSE and A levels. I've always done music, and it's always been so hard because, especially when you study those things academically, you're waiting for that good grade to tell you that you've done a good job. Whereas, I'm like, a lot of this is down to your perspective and your self-expression. So waiting for somebody else to validate something that's quite subjective and not objective is a really hard thing, especially when you're hitting like all the technical points. Because sometimes somebody might come to you and tell you that the mix was okay, but not because you did anything like bad, but because to them, for their perspective, that's not how they would have done it, or they would have like, I would have done this differently. So to them, it's not what they would define as great or good.
I mean, the best thing really, the best compliment you can get is when they don't hear the mix, right? They don't even mention the mix. They're just like, they like the song.
Mm.
And even if they're sort of talking about the mix, but they're not thinking of it like that. They're not going like, oh, I like the way you EQ'd the snare. It's like, no, the song's not that about the snare.
It's a song.
But that's interesting what you bring up about sort of academia and these creative outlets, right? You know, when you start making music, when you start painting, you know, you're not doing it initially for someone to say that's good. You like the process, you like painting, you like making music, and then obviously as you grow up, there's more things where like exams and coursework where it's this has to be assessed, but really when you get past that, you're not necessarily being assessed anymore in that same way. You are still available to just make art and put it out there. And people who like it will hopefully find it.
Exactly, and I think that's the point. I really like what you said about them saying, "I like the song," and not viewing it in terms of the detail. Because at the end of it, that's what you're aiming to do, is create a song. There are some songs that I've listened to. Okay, there's one song from this TV show, Hannah Montana, and whoever tuned her vocals, they need to be fired. It's not a job, because it just. She was what, like 13, 14 when she sang the song too. It's just pitchy all over. But I'm like, that is still one of my favorite Hannah Montana songs till date. And it's a song that is out there for the world to listen to. I mean, Miley Cyrus is like amazing. She's an amazing vocalist. But I'm like, this song that is just pitchy. And I know when it comes every time. And I'm waiting for it. I'm like, it's about the song. And it's about it as a whole, not all like the individual pieces. And I think in a lot of ways, you know you've done a good job as a mixing engineer where it's like, oh, they don't see it as individual pieces, they see it as a whole. Do you have any, like, when I do this, I will have made it goals?
No, not really. It's interesting because obviously you guys know my situation in terms of the university course is closing. So it's perhaps switched. You know, my goal is to be fully freelance mixer. So my goal at the moment is just sort of survive.
When I do this, I want to make it, but I can't get it so much.
You know, you'd always like to, you know, or work with this artist or have this, you know, level of success in terms of stream numbers or whatever it might be. But I don't think that would like bring me happiness or anything like that, right? As long as I can continue working, like that's good enough for me. Like I'll be happy with that. And like, you know, working from my home studio. Just kind of keeping things at the level. I don't mind that. I'm not, you know, aiming super high.
You care about what you do at the end of the day, and that's the true passion. That's where the true joy and success is. The ability to keep on doing it.
Yeah, exactly. As long as I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah.
And still doing it. I think I'll be okay.
Okay, I have one more question for you. What advice would you give to little Frank smashing away at the piano?
I think I'd actually say like get into this sooner. Because I sort of put it off in a way because I was in bands that we were trying to be successful bands, right? And I put a lot of effort into that, and I wasn't really actually focused on mixing like for other people as much. So I think I wasted, you know, a few years where I wish I'd actually thrown myself into more studio situations with other people. And the advice I gave earlier I did collaborate with quite a lot of people, but I should have done even more. Don't sort of, I guess the advice would be like, don't hold back, just chasing that particular area. Or maybe it's don't rely on one avenue because that avenue might not work out.
Yeah, be open.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Frank, for chatting with us and telling us about your journey and also just the advice and the information that you've shared. I mean, I think I'm definitely going to be taking notes when this is over. But thank you so much. So now we are going to play a game.
Cool.
Okay, so we are going to play a game. So, Frank, in this game, I'm going to give you two options of creative preferences, technical preferences, or studio habits. And without thinking about it, you have to say which one you'd go for. Okay, you ready?
I think so.
Okay, analog gear or digital plugins?
Analog.
Okay, reverb or delay?
Reverb.
Compression first or EQ first?
EQ.
Mixing on headphones or mixing on monitors?
What is this?
Vocal or beat-driven mix?
Vocal.
Clean and crisp or warm and gritty?
Clean and crisp.
Preset tweaks or build from scratch?
Build from scratch.
Tame the lows or sparkle in the highs?
Tame the lows.
Mixing at 2 a.m. or 10 a.m.?
10 a.m.
Surgical EQ or broad strokes?
Broad strokes.
Parallel compression or serial compression?
Serial.
Okay. Stem mixes or track by track?
Track by track.
Okay. One perfect plugin or 10 average ones?
One perfect.
Fix it in the mix or get it right at recording?
Get it right.
Client notes or complete creative freedom?
Client notes.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's all that I have. That's really interesting. I want to go back to one of them. Well, which one was it?
There's quite a lot where there are a lot of good questions to expand on there.
Yeah, there's one that you said something. What was it? So originally when you said tame the lows, so it was tame the lows with sparkle in the highs.
Yeah.
Originally I would have said sparkle in the highs, but I'm like tame the lows makes sense because if you tame the lows, it can what's it called? The presence of the highs, like it gets it's
the lows are normally more complicated.
Yeah.
So once you get those, the highs are easy. Don't worry about those.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, because at first I was like my brain immediately went to that, but when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
But it's like the compression ones. I don't really use compression that much at all. So like EQ, the EQ before or after. Was that a question? EQ before or after?
It was compression. It was compression first or EQ first.
Oh yeah, it's like normally just doing EQ.
Yeah.
So it's not even a first or second. I do some compression, but
even the the one perfect plugin or 10 average ones. I thought you were gonna pick 10 average ones.
No, because what I've managed to do over the years is downsize almost. So like just do less.
Yeah.
Right? You're often against that overthinking.
Yeah.
Like, another plugin. So like if I can just use one plugin,
I'm just gonna use it. Yeah.
Doesn't even need to be perfect.
But that makes a lot of sense because before you know it, you're gonna have like 15 different plugins on one track.
Yeah.
You press play and it just stops the whole thing.
Exactly. I think once, who was it? It was Nathan. Once Nathan was working on one of my songs. He was helping me with something, and he opened up my project, and he was like, "How is your computer still working?" He was like, "You have so many tracks and so many plugins." He had to send a picture to Ben because he was like, "Why is this?" He was like, "How is your computer not overheating or something?" I was like, "Yeah, it's bad." I'm like, I need to find myself plugins because it's bad.
Yeah. No, I tend to break it down into lots of plugins for creative things. That's good. So like your reverb, your throws, whatever. But for just the general sound of this is how this thing is supposed to sound.
Yeah.
Just almost like EQ. Is it bright enough? Is it dark enough?
Literally, yeah.
Okay, is there a little weird sound? Okay, I'll take that out.
Yeah. Oh no, but that makes a lot of sense. But Frank, it's been such a joy having you here. Thank you so much. I love the conversation that we've had. I love all the information that I've gotten, like so much that I've learned, and I know like our audience will definitely appreciate that. So thank you again.
Right.
But before we go, I'm going to give you guys the inspirational quote of this episode. And this episode's inspirational quote is by legendary producer, composer, and engineer Quincy Jones. And he said, "The music is only 10%. The other 90% is what you do with it." So keep that in mind. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of In My Bedroom. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, you can listen to and watch more of In My Bedroom on Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and you can subscribe to us on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Bye.